Hey, J-Cake here, and I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me. Well, we are finally past the Midsummer Classic, and we are past the wonky week screwing up the scoring periods. We're going to jump right into it. This video is already late enough. I don't want to push it back anymore. We are going to talk about the Cheese Weasels as usual first this week. I am still at 110.5 points. I am still in 5th place. However, I am climbing closer and closer to passing those in front of me in the statistics. I went over exactly how many behind in certain categories I was last week, and this week those numbers have dwindled already. With this week being half over, I can tell you now I am still continuing to climb. I finally have Yordan Alvarez coming back. More good news, Esther Ruiz is coming back here soon. He was just slated for a rehab assignment earlier today, so yeah, it's looking good. And for me to have crushed the ball with home runs, mainly from JT Martinez, to lessen the gap in the home runs like I was talking about before, has been amazing. Only to have Yordan Alvarez come back and add to that total so that I can continue to climb. I am hoping I'm going to be talking about how I'm going to be jumping up in the standings. As far as the adds and drops for this scoring period, there were none. That's what I'm talking about. We're pretty set with who we have. Speaking of key players and JD Martinez, he had me 8 RBIs this past week. Pitching wise, Joe Musgrove, Joe Ryan, and Aaron Nola each had at least 10 strikeouts for me this week. So continuing to rely on them to get me those strikeouts and increase my strikeout lead in this Roto League. From one high note to another, we're going to move to my Kent Murphy Dingers. I was playing the worst team in the league this week. And if you have been following me, you know I do not have luck with playing teams that are supposed to be easy. I do not have luck with those that are supposed to be easy wins. This week, I did it. I won 7-3. With this win, it pulls me to within half a game of first in my division. As always, you want to win your division, but there's incentive if there's a first round bye. That is in fact the case. I would always like to play less games so that I have less worry about being knocked out, especially when you get to the playoffs. Once you get to the playoffs, anything is possible. Some of the stats that helped me to that 7-3 win this week included Nate Lowe getting me 10 runs, 6 different players having at least 2 home runs, Nolan Arenado having me 14 RBIs, and Bryson Stott running wild on Sunday, getting me 3 stolen bases. I needed those stolen bases to win that category for the week, which worked out perfectly for me. Pitching wise, Clay Holmes got me 3 saves, and these 4 guys got me at least 10 Ks over the course of the week. Reed Detmers, Taj Bradley, Hunter Brown, and newcomer Mackenzie Gore. And to talk about players who did not do well for me, number 1 player on my list, Scott McGuff. He was the closer in Arizona, but forgot how to pitch over the All-Star break and has allowed multiple runs over very few innings, raising his ERA and his WHIP along with my ERA and my WHIP. So it wasn't going to cut it for me. I also had some clunkers from a few starting pitchers, Logan Webb, Luis Urias, and Brian Wu. They all had ERAs 9 or above, which of course is not good for any pitching stat. Yeah, luckily I have those strikeouts. The adds and drops this week were pretty dominated from pitching. I added Mackenzie Gore knowing that he was going to have strikeouts, but also have a high ERA and WHIP. But again, I got the strikeouts. I also added Logan Allen, Kenta Maeda, Nick Pivetta, and Anthony Santander. Those are dropped included Brian Wu, Kenta Maeda, Teoscar Hernandez, JP Sears, and Joe Payamps. And now going from 2 highlights to a 3rd highlight in my Fantrax League, I pulled out a huge win this week. As I told you last week, the number of starts were increased to 19. I believe I may have said 21 in that last video, but we had 19 starts this week. So obviously, every week, as they are normally 13, you have to pick who you want to start very carefully. I believe I found a cheat code. Nick Pivetta has been phenomenal. He is a bulk reliever for the Red Sox, and if he is available in your league somehow, make sure you go pick him up. I also picked up a few other, what I would consider cheat codes that do not count towards your starts because they pick up bulk innings, including Matt Brash and Matt Strahm. These are not guys you would normally have on your team unless maybe you're in a holds league, because they do pick up holds and potentially saves for their bulk relief appearances, but they will usually pitch 2, 3, maybe 4. Pavetta will go 5 innings. They'll get their strikeouts. Hopefully don't give up runs. If they do, so be it. You know, if it's a points league, it's a little different. If it's a categories league, then obviously that may not be ideal. But those 3 were phenomenal for me this past week. The win overall was by about 20 points. It was 635 to 616. That win still leaves me in 8th place, but now I'm 3 games behind being in 6th place. I do feel like I have the opportunities to continue to jump up as I am playing the worst team in the league this week. So hopefully I have more luck like I did with my Kent Murphy Dingers. But this week, with this added momentum and these cheat codes that we're talking about, I really think I've discovered a way to make up for maybe the batting that I don't have. Which, I say it, the batting I don't have. I have Ronald Acuna, who is the leading scorer in the league. So that's awesome. So hopefully, as I said previously in these videos, I'm just pissing away his talent. I'm not doing it now. So I'm super excited. Some of the high scorers for me this week were Nolan Arenado and Nolan Gorman, both having at least 58 points, and Justin Turner coming in with 62 points. Some of those that did not perform well for me included Brian Wu, who got me 1 point, Tyler Wells, who got me 4 points, and Martin Perez, who got me 2 points. That's what I'm talking about, being smart about who you're going to play, knowing who they're going to play against. And history with those teams, or history in that time of year. Tyler Wells has surpassed the innings he pitched last year. He is performing well above what his career stats say he should be. So this might be a good time for me to be mindful about him moving forward. He may not be able to get me those quality starts. He may not be able to go 6-7 innings like he had before for the Orioles. They might be relying more on their relief pitching when Tyler Wells pitches. Speaking of players and knowing how they're performing, I picked up a few this week who were looking at good starts moving forward, or who I thought were going to be able to contribute to my team more than what I already had. Those included Matt Strahm, Matt Brash, Johan Oviedo, Logan Allen, and Wilson Contreras, not to be confused with William Contreras. Those I dropped included Tanner Scott, which, here's an aside, if you're in a league that counts holds or obviously has strikes as a category, Tanner Scott is a phenomenal relief pitcher to have. So back to those I dropped. Michael Wacha, because he is now out for a longer period of time. I was hoping he was going to be back in time to help give my team a boost. Julio Teheran, Lamont Wade, and Jake Sawinski. And now we're going to move to my ESPN leagues, where I still do have some positives, but those 2 leagues were the ones I had the biggest leads in. Out of the 16 or 18 respective categories, I had double-digit leads, which would boost me in the rankings and almost guarantee me a spot in at least 6th place. I talked last week for my South Harmon Institute of Technology team. There was no way that I was going to surpass the number 1 guy in my division because I was 18 games behind. Well, there were 18 categories, so there was a chance. I feel like Dumb and Dumber. So you're telling me there's a chance. At one point in time, I was leading him by like 8 or 9 categories. I was going to cut that deficit in half. Well, I was up by 8 categories going into Sunday. Meteoric collapse. I still won 7 categories to 6 categories to 5 categories. Still maintained 2nd overall in division and 4th overall in the league. But I am only looking at a 1 game cut of the 18 games behind. So now I'm 17 games behind. Again, I could have cut that in half. Very frustrating. Again, I'm glad I came out with the win. I'm glad I picked up a game because every game counts. But man, I am I am frustrated. But what doesn't frustrate me are the stat lines of the guys who helped me gain that single game from the division leader. I had 10 plus strikeouts from Nick Pivetta, Bailey Ober, and Hunter Brown. Both Freddie Freeman and Justin Turner had at least 7 RBIs. And Freddie Freeman himself was a stat line. 13 runs, 3 home runs, 5 walks, and 28 total bases. I wish everyone on my team would look up and see the example Freddie Freeman is showing and step their game up to perform like him. I wouldn't have to worry about the 17 games at all if that were the case. As we move to the adds and drops, hopefully the guys that I added will take heed of the performance from Freddie Freeman and do that for my team. The adds included Edward Julian, who has been on fire for the Twins. I watched him in the World Baseball Classic and he was performing well then, so it is no surprise that he is doing well in the major leagues. At catcher, I made a switch. Elias Diaz had been ice cold, so I picked up Patrick Bailey, the catcher for the San Francisco Giants, because he was hitting close to 280. But that didn't work out, so I picked up Astros catcher Yanier Diaz, who was also performing at a high level. But that didn't work out. So I picked up Yasmani Grandal. Because, he plays for the White Sox. He's doing decent. He's doing a whole heck of a lot better than some of the other players on that team. So, yeah, let me give him a shot. I also looked to pick up JP France and Christian Javier. In order to make room for the people to come on my team, I obviously have to let go of people. And that list includes Elias Diaz, Yanier Diaz, Patrick Bailey, J.P. Sears, J.P. Crawford, Matt Manning, and James Paxton. I may have only cut the lead for the division by 1 game. My record still stands at 117 wins, 106 losses, and 47 ties. And finally, we're going to shift over to Rustle My Jim Jams. This team has overall been my most disappointing team. It's been a frustrating season because the players that I would usually rely on have not performed up to what they should have, including like a Max Scherzer. I had to have several go on the IL for periods of time throughout the year. So, father time and injuries are things that you cannot beat. Regardless of how well you draft, how well you search a waiver wire, you're going to run into some bad luck. But that luck did not run out, and it actually helped as I was able to pick up the win 9 categories to 4 categories to 3 categories. That leaves me at still 8th overall in the standings, but I cut the number of games to get to 6th place to 7. So again, over the next 8 or so weeks, I have to make up 7 games to get into the playoffs. Maybe this week alone, and that would be phenomenal, but we'll have to come back later and see about that. Speaking of coming back in next week to get some information, I had some guys who come back to my team to help me win these league categories. Some of those names included Seiya Suzuki, Kyle Finnegan, and Seth Lugo. Then we had some newcomers, including Michael Conforto, Matt Manning, and John Gray. Some of the guys that were cut from the team to make room for those newbies or those returners included TJ Friddle, Kenta Maeda, Matt Manning, Seth Lugo, Michael Conforto, and Jeimer Candelario. The icing on the top of the cake for that one is he hit a home run the day I released him. He had set out the day before, had fouled a ball off of his ankle, so I was like, okay, he's not going to play. Well, he did, and he made me pay. Thanks, Jeimer Candelario. Some of the players that helped me win this week included Brian De La Cruz and CJ Cron having at least 2 home runs each. De La Cruz having 4 extra base hits, Nate Lowe having 5 RBIs, Bryson Stott having 5 walks and running wild, like I said earlier on the Sunday, with 3 stolen bases. Nick Pivetta also pitched in with 13 strikeouts in a relief appearance. While this week's win does not put me any higher in the standings, I'm still in 8th place, I'm still not in playoff contention, it does leave my record at 90 wins, 112 losses, and 38 ties. I do believe I can make this up. I can get to the playoffs, and like I said earlier in this video, like I've said in other videos, once you get to the playoffs, anything is possible. Some of the big news this week that we can talk about now that all of the leagues have been discussed. Returning from the IL does include, as I mentioned before, Yordan Alvarez, also including Jose Altuve, Estray Ruiz is hopefully going to be returning soon once he gets some rehab under his belt. We have Brandon Woodruff looking like he's going to be back sooner than expected. So that's going to be good for some of my fantasy teams because he has been a hold all year for me. Some unfortunate news. Shane Bieber was released from my team in one of my leagues. He was transferred to the 60-day IL, and that is not going to be good for me. It is one of my keeper leagues. I did take him number one, or at least I did take him first round. The person behind me took Kevin Gosman, so we see that I messed up there. But I would not have him as a keeper, especially as a first round keeper. I feel like his value will plummet this year, hopefully either getting traded or getting healthy in the summer will allow me to pick him up at some point in time next year in the draft at a more reasonable cost. But that is a heartbreaking piece of information, especially because a lot of my friends are fans of the Cleveland Platinum Level Health Insurances, which is what I feel like the name makes it sound like. But yeah, guys, that is it for week 16. All positive notes from me. I'm super excited to continue talking about this, and I want you to look forward to the playoffs just like I am looking forward to in all of my leagues. Well, not the Roto League because there's no playoff in that, but the other 4 leagues, we're making it, and hopefully I come home with some ships to talk to you all about. This is J Cake, and I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me.